Well, hello. It's Tuesday. We know what that means. It's Let's Talk Tuesday. And it's good to see you guys. I see Detroit and Texas. I'm in, as you can see, a different background. I'm in Culver City at the moment. Let's see, Indiana, but leaving for Romania. Yeah, that's kind of a ways away. Chattanooga. Hi, you guys. Good to see you. Hey, I wanted to talk specifically tonight because, as some of you may have seen in various articles and postings and trades and all of that, this conversation or spirited dialogue, I'll call it, about self taping. And there have been a few people who, very public, more well known people who've kind of shortly made a comment about the perception that casting directors are preventing us from going back to in-person auditions, or that we're being lazy, or that we need to, just get back to our office like everybody else. And so I want to talk about that because um, I do want to explain a little bit about the process, but then I'm also happy to take your questions specifically about the self-tape process, your thoughts on that specific topic tonight. So, of course, we all know that the self-tape practice, or what became the norm, came out of the pandemic, right? It was the only way people could audition. Let me tell you, I'm going to take you back to a time before the pandemic, if you can remember it, that you'd have to be in person. So what's interesting is that when we were doing in-person reads, one of the challenges was, I would hear a lot, like when I spoke various places, was if you didn't live in LA or New York or Atlanta, then what were your options, right? To get seen for projects or for casting directors who were based in those areas. Well, when in-person projects were the norm, you really didn't have as great a chance to be seen and to be put in the mix equally with other people who were physically in those markets. Um, and so it really was about who I could schedule, who could physically come into the room and audition for me here in Culver City. And that would be the same for any casting director. That also meant that we only had certain time slots. So, if I'm brought on for a project and I have, so much time to cast the project, there's only so many days, which means there's only so many slots that fit within that time frame. And so there were times where I could bring in maybe 50 for a role. 100 was a lot for one role, just because, you had typically a lot of roles to get through. And again, when you're talking about physical appointments throughout the day, it each has to have its own time, and enough time so that everyone feels like, they got their time and they had time to do the scene the way that they wanted to. So we were very limited in the number of people because we couldn't just indefinitely read people, or say we're going to spend 2 weeks on one role just seeing people every day. We couldn't do that. The other challenge with that, or things that I heard a lot when we were in person, was the drive time. So my office in Culver City happens to be closer. I'm kind of on the farther side, what we would say up over the hill from like Sony, and then of course even further from all the studios and Studio City and WB and all those studios. And so my office was a little bit of a jaunt for people. Of course, anyone who lived near me, Marina Del Rey or Santa Monica, Culver City, those people loved it because there weren't as many opportunities to go to auditions down in this part of town. But for the most part, actors were driving a lot, and I know what it's like to drive, across town to try to get to appointments. So those were some of the negatives of the in-person audition. Now, of course, the upside was you were in the room, we could give direction, and there was you always had a reader there for you. You didn't have to find your own reader, and those are all very, very valid pluses to the audition um, process. And those are some of the wonderful things that were a part of the in-person audition process. Pandemic came, things changed, and I think what we're finding, one of the reasons that self tapes are staying, and I think some aspect of them are here to stay, is because there are significant benefits to the self-tape process that I honestly believe benefit the actor in the long run. And so compare what I was just talking to an actor who could now probably do 5, 6, 7 auditions in a day if they wanted to. There would be no way to physically drive to all of those appointments in a given day, but you can tape them on your own time. It also allows actors to have a regular job if that's what they need to do right now to help pay bills, because they're able to schedule taping their auditions around their schedule, their other work schedule or class, or if they're in a show, any of that, they can do it around those schedules as opposed to having to try to fit everything into the 9 to 5, Monday through Friday workday. Um, but one of the biggest benefits, I think, especially for the either newer actors or actors who aren't the ones who were kind of on the short list and always called in for everything, is that I'm seeing 3 times, if not 4 times, the number of people for a role than I used to. And that's simply because I can structure reviewing those tapes in a different way so that I can go through them and I can watch them and I can fit them into my other work in a way that I can get it all done. And I'm a night owl, so I actually like watching tape often at night. And so I like being able to um, look and watch the tapes whenever I have opportunity. And that's actually a benefit, because where I may have brought in 50 people in an in-person audition, I literally can bring in 300. And that's way more people who are getting seen and who are getting an opportunity to be seen. And you don't have to live in those major markets necessarily. Now, again, I'm talking, there's still projects that shoot on the like studio lots, television projects, network projects that shoot on the studio lots, in which case, yes, you do need to, be near those actual studio locations. But otherwise, there's flexibility now to see actors from all over. So I really do think that it is a benefit. Sorry, that's my phone. That it is a benefit to you as the actor, because we're not seeing fewer people, we're seeing more people. Now, I do understand, there's I hear you when you say, like, you don't get direction, you don't get feedback. Um, I understand that. There wasn't always a ton of time in the in-person casting session to redirect or provide a ton of feedback there either, in all honesty. And so sometimes our schedules were such that we just, all we had is someone could come in and do their scene once, and we couldn't, redo it or play with it. So that wasn't always the case in person either. The the thing about the self tape is that at least you are giving your absolute best take, right? You have control over what we see, as opposed to coming in, doing your scene, and then walking away and thinking, oh man, I wanted to do it differently, or I could have done it differently. Um, so you are giving us your best take. Now, one of the things I really do want to clarify about, and I need to clarify this for me, clarify the words that I've said in the past couple weeks about self tapes and the quality, and making sure that you're investing in what you need so that your tapes look good. I actually do not mean that you need to be going out and paying for self tape services. So I want to be clear about that. You do not need to be going to a separate studio and booking that time to do your self tapes. To clarify, what I was talking more about was just making sure you have a decent camera and that you have a tripod or a way to set it up so that it's stable, it gives you the right amount of distance, that you have decent lighting so that you're lit from the front and not like some funky sort of weird light behind you or from the side that distorts things, and and that you have a backdrop that is neutral and clean. But those things don't cost a lot of money. And that's really what I'm talking about. We just want to be able to see you well, hear you well, and kind of be free of distractions. That's really all you need. I don't need you to go out and go to a studio and have professional lighting and do all of that. So if I led you to believe that, that's bad on me, because that's not what I meant. So you do need to have the quality good so that we're not losing your performance because we can't see or hear it. But other than that, you just need to invest in the like basic tools or your phone um, in order to do what you need to do. And a reader, there's a couple of different ways you can do the reading. So there's programs in which you can pre-record it, and then you're saying the lines to the pre-recorded kind of track. You can have someone just call in via Zoom or FaceTime, and your phone or iPad or whatever is out of camera, but we're just hearing them. You, of course, can have someone in the room. Um, there are numerous options, and more, there are groups that are um, kind of pooling together and saying, hey, let's create a pool of actors who can help each other out, right? And I have seen that happen on Christian Casting. Um, if you're a SAG member, SAG also has some service options, excuse me, to provide that, or people who will sign up and be available to help. So you can go to the SAG website and check into that. But there are others that are growing out of this need. So even within your own network of actor friends, let them know that you would be willing and available. Create an email chain that you guys can say, hey, I got a self tape. Are any of you available to be my reader? Anything like that where you guys can help each other out and communicate. That would be great, and I think it would solve that problem, because that does seem to be one of the issues that seems to be frustrating for actors in the self tape environment. So do I think that we're going to go back to, so the hybrid of self tape and in person live is Zoom like auditions, where you are live, meaning we're talking and it's live in the moment, but it's via the internet. So there's Zoom, of course, and then Breakdown Services has theirs, which is called EcoCast Live. And so it's interactive. It's as if you're in the room, but you're just in your space and I'm in mine. I will tell you that I'm at the point where callbacks are definitely going that direction. So it allows for interaction, it allows for feedback, it allows for redirects. And so when we get to that point where we're going to the callbacks, then I think that is a really important tool, and I think is going to be the norm. At least that's what I'm finding. And then in-person callbacks. So I have in-person callbacks scheduled for Thursday, and it's a callback, so we're very narrowed in who's coming in, and we're being very specific. But that will be in person. So I, there we benefit from the interaction as well as you, the actor. We glean things from that interaction as far as just personality types, or maybe how you work, or just little subtle things about how you might be in the role or how you might be to work with. So we we gain something from that. So we're not, so there is a reason for us to also want to incorporate that into our process more and more. And so you will see that. And I think that is, I think we're going to find the right balance. It just is taking a little bit for everyone to sort of get settled and kind of figure out what that rhythm is. But I did want to be really clear. You don't need to be paying a studio to go do your tapes to make sure you're competitive. Just make sure we can see you clearly, hear you clearly, and that there's not distraction. So like this background, very distracting, is not a good background for a live or an audition. So I'm giving you this is what not to do. See the cute picture of Lee Merriweather as Catwoman on my wall. She's awesome. Yes, so this is the what not to do for your self-tape. So um, I am going to look at some of your questions, or Diego, as you know, oh, there we go. Madison. Hi, Madison. My question is how to make my self-tape stand out. Are there any colors I should be wearing or choices I can make? I think you just want to be smart about the colors you choose, in that what looks good on you. So what makes your hair pop or your eyes pop? Um, those things do show up, and anytime where we kind of look and your eyes are really nice and bright, and the colors that you've chosen are complementary to your complexion, those are good choices. So it's not really for me to tell you specifically what that should be. So I don't want to tell you like, okay, just get a neutral gray background, because if that's not going to be complementary to your skin tone, then you're better to do something that goes towards blue, or something that goes towards green, or whatever those colors might be, a soft plum or something. But be mindful of what you look like, and maybe try a couple different, take pictures of you in front, or take some video test footage of you in front, and see for yourself in which videos samples do you look at yourself and say, oh, that looks like me, or I look good, or I can see my eyes. Those are the colors you should choose, of course, without going too bright. Stay within kind of the I don't want to say neutrals, but like the blues or grays or soft colors, or a green. We don't want neon. We don't want like neon pink or something like that. But think of um, photographic sort of backgrounds, um, muddled or a little bit of texture, something like that. But choose colors that look good for you. Okay. Hi, George. What do you think of shadows and space above the head? Technically, how important for the LA market? Um, you don't want a lot of headroom, just in general, because it's wasted space, right? So think of the frame as your real estate. It doesn't really do you any good to have, I'm leaning down, but like to have this much headroom, right, in the space above me, that is a completely wasted space. So it's much better if you can frame yourself so that you are filling the space appropriately and able to set it up. So I know, honestly, I've seen people with like books on top of books with a box, and any way that they need to configure it to get to the right sort of height. So we won't see how you've done it. It's kind of like, we're not seeing how the sausage is made. We'll see the end result, that it looks good and the framing is good. But how you got there, it could be the most crazy configuration of, boxes and bowls or whatever it takes to do it. But I would try to frame it so that you have minimal headroom on the top, if possible. Does it hurt you if your reader isn't an actor? No, unless the reader is so poor that it's affecting your performance, or that it's distracting. So there are a few times where someone has had maybe a child be their reader, and some children are great, and that's fine. But a child or a relative or someone, I won't actually know who it is, but someone who actually is distracting either because their pacing is so slow or you can't understand them very well. Those things can be a distraction. The pacing, I think, is one of the biggest issues because as much as you would like to not have it affect you, if your reader is really slow and bringing you down, chances are it's going to bleed into your performance as far as how you're reacting and the energy of your performance. So no, they don't have to be actors. They don't have to be great, but you need to make sure they're not distracting, so that they're kind of so far from good that it takes away and it hurts you. That's what I would say. Hi, Elias. How are you? Good to see you. What is your opinion on ring lights for self-taping? Oh, you are very welcome. Okay, so ring lights, the hardest thing about ring lights is if you have it set up to where it's your main light and you end up with a ring in the middle of your eyeball and it looks alien-esque and it actually can be quite distracting. So that's the only thing about ring lights that I would tell you to be careful about. So either diffuse them with some sort of, you can get like diffusion material that you can, order off of Amazon and just put it over the light, which will help diffuse it so it's not a distinct circle ring. Um, or there are some ring lights that come with their own sort of diffusion covers that clip on. But you do want to be careful. And again, I'd say do a sample and look at it. And the thing is, when we're watching tape, we're connecting to you through your eyes. So if your eyes have this circle, this really distinct circle in the middle, it becomes distraction. It looks alien-esque, and it's hard for us to connect because it's not natural. And so our eye keeps kind of trying to settle in and kind of go deeper, but it's distracting. So that's the only thing about a ring light. So just be careful, test it, check it. Now, if you have other like side lights or some other sources of light to where it's naturally being diffused, then you may not have that issue. But do a sample, make sure you're not getting that circle ring in the middle. Otherwise, then it's fine. Then it's good. Okay, Nishika. I'm sure I'm not saying that anywhere right, but it's a beautiful name anyway. So forgive me for not getting the name right. Okay, do you consider self-tapes that submitted with a quicker turnaround versus self-tapes that are submitted in the time allotted? So recently, actually this week, um, I I've been sending out self-tape requests and I've been specifically listing like here's your deadline, but I prefer it if you can get them to me sooner because I'm anxious to start looking at the tapes. And it's nice when they come in um like not all at once right at the deadline because I want to go through them all. It's nice to have them come in more of a little at a time up to the deadline. So I will say that if you get your tape in earlier, typically we haven't seen as many yet, which can be good for you because you're not in the throes of me watching like 100. I may only have gotten 20 by the time you send your tape in early. And so, it's a little different focus at that point. So I don't think there's any disadvantage, and there can be an advantage in that the advantage being you get a little bit more devoted time on your tape potentially simply because the full volume of tapes hasn't come in yet, if that makes sense. They all get watched, they all get paid attention to. So that doesn't change whether you turned it in early or late, but it's just the context in which we're watching it, whether we have 100 we're watching at that time, or if we only have a few that have come in, may allow us to maybe spend a little bit more time watching it. So, okay. Hi, Ashley. When your agent sends you an audition for a faith-based project, is it good to leave a note that tells them you are a believer? Um, you can, or a note. Yeah, I mean, you can send a note that says you really like connect to the material, or this kind of material is close to my heart, or these are the kinds of films that I want to be doing, something like that. Um, Again, I don't think there's any harm in it. I don't think you have to, but there's no harm in it for sure. If you want to just let them know, hey, this content is content that I really have a passion for and I really believe in. And that really wouldn't be any different than if, you were a lifelong horse lover and you had an opportunity to audition for a movie where the character would ride horses. Then you could write a note that said, hey, I love horses, have ridden my whole life. This would be great to be a part of it. I don't see it, that kind of a note, any different than saying, hey, I love this content or this material, or, what the themes of this project, and just kind of make it known that you connect to it on that level. So, okay. Does it bother you if it's my own voice as the reader that I've read for myself? No. Mm-mm. No, that's totally fine. In fact, it can be good just because you're an actor. So, you're reading it, and it happens. It's done a lot, so you shouldn't feel self-conscious about that at all. It's not a problem at all. I found one. Beverly, how do you feel about wearing glasses on a self-tape? Um, Well, if you have to wear glasses, I mean, wearing glasses is your primary way of working, or you have to wear glasses should you be hired. You don't wear contacts and you would have to wear glasses, then have the glasses. You just have to be careful about reflections, and the same thing on set. So if the option was to not use the glasses, um, then you can make that note, or you can maybe slate with the glasses, then take it off for the read, or vice versa, slate without the glasses, and then put the glasses on for your read. Um, but what they'll need to know, or what we need to know, is if you have to have the glasses because you can't wear contacts, and you have to have the glasses should you get a role, then that just needs to be known, that you wear glasses and you can't wear contacts. So maybe make a note of that somewhere. So, okay. Hi, Anne. How can you capture the casting director's attention within the first 15 seconds? There's no formula for that. Um, it has to do with everything. It has to do with all of it. It has to do with this is where I'm talking about sort of the look of your audition. And again, I don't mean studio. I just mean that you've chosen a backdrop color that is complementary to your skin. You've chosen a wardrobe color that is complementary to your skin tone, or your hair tone, and your eye color. That you look the role, that you are clearly prepared, that you have good energy and good pacing for whatever the scene calls for. That you yeah, that you're just jumping in, uh, and you know your stuff. So there's no other formula other than that, just kind of doing what you always do, which is kind of doing excellent work. But you certainly help yourself with the visuals being as complimentary towards you as possible. Um, yeah, so that's what I would say. Um, and think of it, sorry, Grace, I'll get to your question. Think of it like anything. So put yourself in my shoes, right? I'm, let's say I have 100 tapes that I'm watching, and I'm sitting down at my computer and I'm watching 100 tapes. My eye is naturally going to be excited by and drawn to those tapes that when I turn them on, things are pleasing. Things look professional, they're pleasing to my eye, which typically means the actor has thought about those things, that you've thought about what you're wearing, you've thought about what your background is, and you've made sure that you have some, lighting that is complementary. That when you're watching so many tapes, it was the same when we were doing in person, right? When you're seeing so many people back to back, any of those things visually, just our eyes like to see good visuals. And so anything that is complementary towards you is going to help you. And then the rest is your performance. So, that's on you. But you can get our attention by being prepared and having the right kind of energy and knowing your stuff, and just giving it your best shot. Okay, we'll go back to the question that Sweet Grace, it keeps popping up. What is your opinion on using cinematic mode on iPhone for self-tape auditions? I'm assuming by cinematic mode you mean like widescreen like this. I don't necessarily need it. Again, because this part can be kind of wasted space, but it's not distracting unless the edge of your like backdrop falls off. Sometimes I see that where the edge of the backdrop, you kind of see the edge and beyond. But you definitely want to be in landscape mode. You don't want to be in portrait mode. You don't want to be up and down. You definitely want to be in landscape mode this way for sure. But other than that, I don't think it makes a huge difference as long as it doesn't end up messing up your backdrop. Hopefully that answers that. How do you feel about actors ad-libbing at the end of a scene in auditions? Is it beneficial or distracting? Well, I don't know. By ad-libbing, I don't know if you're talking about like ad-libbing a quick line as an exit out of the scene or just a quick little button at the end of scene, which, that's fine in most cases, but doing much more than that, you have to just be careful. So you might do a take where it's exactly as written and clean, and then maybe a second take where you add a little more ad lib in it, so that we see both, because you never know how, like if I'm working with a writer director and that director is very particular about their words, and remember, the writer has written, and oftentimes months and months and months, if not years, they've worked on that script. Every scene, every word is there for a reason. So anytime that you're going to put aside the way that they structured it, you have to be careful that it doesn't come across as like disrespectful or that you're disregarding what they put so much time and thought into. Now, having said that, there is a point at which the director often wants to see you kind of make it your own so that the spirit of the scene and the goal of the scene is accomplished, but you're kind of making it your own. But typically you sort of get permission to do that, right? They'll say either, like, just let the script go and just make it your own, or, in an audition. In the self-tape, again, this kind of goes back to, not being in the room, but if you want to do a take where you add something at the end, um, or relax it slightly, you can do that. But I would do a take that is pretty true to what it doesn't have to be like every single word exact if it's an and or a or that kind of thing, but I would stay pretty true to it. And then a quick little ad lib at the end, if it feels natural and it's well placed, can be good, can be great. But don't try to do it. Like, it just has to be something that comes so naturally. It just is a complete outgrowth of the scene and your character and being in the scene, being in it and being present in the scene. It shouldn't be like, okay, what funny thing can I think of to put at the end of the scene so I'll stand out? If you're trying too hard to do it, that's how it's going to come across to us. It'll come across forced or contrived. If it's something that just very naturally, a natural response to the way that you've taken the character and the way that you're living in the scene in the moment, then that can be really good. But don't try to force it. Don't try to force it or make it happen because you think you're going to stand out. Because yeah, if you have to try too hard, it probably isn't good. So, okay, I think that we may, yeah. Okay, so we're towards the end of our time. Um, Candace, I see your question. I am going to answer that. If you're speaking to several different characters, is it okay to have them one just left of camera, the other just right of camera? I've asked because I've heard some CDs and directors say they don't like if you go across camera with your sight lines. I've not had that experience in the directors I've worked with where they have an issue with actors going across the camera line. So I've not had anyone object to that that I've worked with. But you you can place them subtly different. It doesn't have to be a really big shift for us to be able to see it. So you could literally just put them next to each other, one here and one here, and we're gonna see the difference. Um, if you're concerned about going across camera, like I said, I haven't had that experience or anyone object. I don't object to it. So yeah, but if you, yeah, so I don't know how to answer that other than to say it's not a problem for me or any of the directors I've worked with that I've heard that they've ever expressed. So, okay, so I think that's it. I just wanted to, again, I just really want you guys to know, I you don't have to go, if you have the opportunity and you have the means and you want to go to studios and have your self tapes done and work with them, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no negative to that. And that's your choice. But I just want it to be clear that from our standpoint, that's not a requirement of you being considered. So make the most of what you have, do the best with the resources you have. And if going to a studio is one of the resources that you have, then awesome. If it's not, don't be discouraged. Just make the most of what you do have, and then network together, you guys, to be readers for each other and to make yourselves available because you're all expressing that same sort of challenge with the readers. So yeah, try to help each other out that way and network together to make that a little easier for everybody. So okay, well, I appreciate you all. I'm gonna jump off now, and I'll see you next Tuesday. And in the meantime, I hope you guys have a fantastic week, and I love and appreciate you, and bye for now.